try to draw jobs into this state, you've got to be able to compete with your surrounding states in support, but also in your income tax rate. We lose our entrepreneurs to other states because of that. And so I hope we can tackle tax reform here in the state of Arkansas. And then whenever you have that job-creating environment, you've got to have an incredibly good education system. We're building, we've got a good foundation, we're doing more, but we have to continue to work in that area. I had a gentleman come into my office the other day, and he was telling me, he said, I want to tell you up front, I've been through bankruptcy. He said, I signed on to a loan, I had partners, they went belly up, the bank made a call, I couldn't do it, and I said, here's your property back, and I went through bankruptcy. And he was just being honest, it happens. But then, you know what he said? He said, I started a job. I started a business. And it was an app, a computer app. He created an app. Somebody was able to write code. He created this, and the business is worth $100 million today. And he created jobs, high-paying jobs in his arena. I guess it tells you that, first of all, America is a place of new starts, of fresh starts. But also it tells you that today's job environment, much of it is about the computer sciences. There are fewer computer science graduates today than 10 years ago. These folks are the future job creators of our generation. 1 million more jobs than people trained in this field by the year 2020. But yet in 41 out of 50 states, coding classes where you learn to write computer code do not count toward a math or science credits needed for graduation. And Arkansas is in this category. There's simple changes that we can make in a state where we can encourage computer science. We can encourage code writing capability. And that's where our entrepreneurs are going to be. You think about the Delta, where we've struggled for years in providing manufacturing jobs and job opportunities for young people. All it takes is one bright mind that can create jobs and create a business that will provide an opportunity for many others. And it could be by writing the next app, creating online systems. You can do that anywhere, and you can market globally. There are so many opportunities for us in this state to build and to prosper, and I'm excited about what we can do. I want to mention our legislature. We have a new Republican majority in the Arkansas General Assembly. And I want to express my appreciation to Representative Lane Jean for the job he's doing, the friend he's been. Where are you, Lane? Lane and I go back a ways, is that right?
What a way.
We won't tell them how long. But what a remarkable job. I'm so proud of our legislature. Whenever you think of any issue that they've tackled, whether it's tax reform, whenever it looks at the issue of Medicaid, they created for the first time an Inspector General's office to monitor Medicaid fraud. Can you believe we've never had that before? Is that not incredible? And that's because Republicans and conservatives are thinking in that fashion and providing that leadership and providing more efficiency and tax reduction. When it came to the Big River Steel project over in eastern Arkansas, and it could have been here, they did a due diligence on it. They looked at it, and they ultimately supported it, but they did the right thing in protecting our taxpayers. And when it came to the incredible responsibility they had with Obamacare, all I can say is that you've got good conservatives on both sides of that issue. Whenever it came to the mandate to expand Medicaid, they didn't say we're going to do it. They said let's look at private sector options to see what can happen here. Now you could say that's a good idea or a bad idea, but they tried their dead level best to say let's put conservative principles to work. And we have never had to deal with this at all had the congressman then from South Arkansas not allowed Obamacare to go through the committee. And so we're dealing with a mess that was not created by us. I have two nephews, both in the Senate. both conservative, both hardworking, both thoughtful. One voted for the private option and one voted against it. Now, I could say that I agree with my nephews, but that would be a cop-out. But it goes to show how we as a party, we are governing now. And so we as a party are going to have disputes within our ranks. And we need to learn to debate those, to fight in the marketplace ideas, express our convictions, and then move on. And that's what we have to do now. We have such opportunities in the state. I love the state of Arkansas. Whether you're talking about the South, the Delta, or the Northwest, this is a precious state that is unique among all the states, in my judgment. We have got an opportunity to mark ourselves and to build. I'm glad here in Magnolia you've got a great economic development team that I've met with, and I know you need roads. Somebody asked, well, what can a governor do? Well, if you go over to El Dorado and ask Madison Murphy or anybody around there, they know what a governor can do. You can appoint a highway commissioner, and that highway commissioner can help build roads. And so there's a lot that can be done. I look for the opportunity of campaigning. Let me end by just saying, going back to what that one individual said, that this is a time that we're concerned about the direction of our country. What can we do to help? I hope that each of you will ask that same question going down the future. What can you do to help, to support our candidates, to advocate for growth in Arkansas and a better future and the values that we all learn in the small community and on the farm? Thank you. God bless you. And I was asked to take some questions. I think there's some microphones out there. And I wanted to give a little warning to David, our candidate for Attorney General, to think of a good question. Might be a primer here, so be on guard. But I want to take a few questions from you, and if it gets real difficult, I've got some good backup here. Mr. Chair. So are there any questions you have you want to ask? All right.
We've had a lot of class warfare going on, in the nation, and I wondered what your opinion is in Arkansas in particular about the root cause of poverty and what you could do about that.
Well, I don't know if I'm smart enough to tell you the root cause of poverty, but I will tell you that education has a large part to do with it. The family structure has a large part to do with it. I think there's the state's responsibility is a safety net, and we've got to show more compassion, and we have to make sure not just the state has the safety net in place, but also the voluntary organizations are in place to address from a compassionate standpoint the challenges that we face in a state that still has poverty. So what's the reason for it? I think all those are ingredients: the family, the education that they may or may not get, the parental support. All of those are parts of it. So and we need to be able to address those. Another question.
Explain why it's so important to have a Republican government speak the constitutional offices and how that we have them involved.
First of all, we will never in history have, it's never happened that we've had a Republican governor and a Republican majority. And what that means is that you can shape the agenda for this state. It means a great deal of responsibility. All of a sudden, you just can't be pointing your finger at others. You've got to actually make sure that budget balances. You've got to make sure that the systems work and that there's not that fraud and abuse. So you got that responsibility, but incredible opportunity to tackle things that have not been tackled before. For example, the efficiency in government. I don't believe that we've ever really gone after trying to slow the growth of government, to be more efficient and not diminish delivery of services, to be more efficient in that. I think that's what we can do in the future. It also, though, gives you opportunity to tackle the high tax structure that we have in this state. And it takes leadership to go after the income tax that just sticks out like a sore thumb whenever we have 7% and surrounding states have so much lower. And you have to do it responsibly. It's got to be a step at a time, consistent with our budget needs. But unless you have a leader and a legislature that will follow that, then it won't even be tackled. But it's not just about the governor's office. I tell you, the attorney general right here, if we would have had an attorney general this last cycle and a governor that would have said, we will join with the multiple other states that are challenging Obamacare and its constitutionality, it could have made a tipping balance difference. And so you go on and on down that list, because the governor, that elected official, and the other constitutional officers represent our values, speak for us, and sometimes it hasn't happened in the past. So I think that's a great opportunity for us. Yes?
There's a ballot, or not a ballot initiative, but a proposal set forth. I'm not sure who did it. It's called the Arkansas One Tax. Are you familiar with that? Or it's the corollary to the fair tax, which is the federal sales tax that would replace all other taxes.
Right.
So I'm glad you just mentioned tax reform. So I'm going to ask you, principally, would you be in favor of replacing the income tax with a consumption tax, which would make us more competitive in states like Texas, and if Louisiana goes that way, Louisiana as well. So would you be okay with, in principle, replacing the income tax with a consumption tax?
Well, right now we have a 6% sales tax in Arkansas, and so you're starting off with a high sales tax. So if you did away with the income tax and moved it, I know you're referring to a consumption tax, but it winds up being sort of a sales tax, you would have a very, very high sales tax in Arkansas. And part of the challenge with that is that if you kick the state up to, say, a 10-cent sales tax and did away with the income tax, then local communities are going to have a hard time with their 1-cent county tax for economic development or their 1-cent local option tax for road improvements, which I really believe that's been a great boon to Arkansas. So the answer is, I would like to, I think it's going to be tough to do that. I think it's going to be tough because we're starting off with a high sales tax. I think you've got to grow, create more jobs, create more taxpayers, more revenue, and as you do that, you can start winnowing down some of those high tax rates. My approach, though, let me tell you, I think we've got some good Democrats in this room, and I appreciate them being here. Because I run as the way you have to do as a partisan. You run as a Republican or a Democrat. I'm running as a Republican. That's where my values are, and I'm a strong supporter of that. But whenever you start governing, I bring Democrats in the room, I bring Republicans in the room and say, let's tackle this together, and let's work together to see if we can't find a solution and to come up with this challenge. It might break down, but that's the starting point on meaningful discussions and meaningful reform at the state level. That's what their mission in Washington right now. Thank you for that question. Next question. Yes, sir.
In your opinion, do you think there's any remote possibility of ever repealing or repairing Obamacare?
Great question. And in the short term, no. Because even if, elections make a difference, and right now you've got President Obama there for 4 more years, you would have to, you'd have to have 60 votes in the Senate. And then if he vetoes it, gotta have even higher than that for the veto, override the veto. So as long as he's there and he can veto anything that comes out, you have to have the 2/3 to override, and I just don't see any way we're gonna get to that. So the reality is Obamacare is here for the near future. Now, what is exciting to me is that under the what's happened in Arkansas, it might not be ideal, but we're getting waivers that we can manage and create our own future. You know, Missy Irvin got a Rhode Island type waiver, I think it was, which is almost makes Medicaid a block grant. Now, this is sort of a simplistic approach to it. But what you're seeing is because Washington is so broke, they're turning back more authority to the states to manage their own programs. And so I see the future that we're going to be able to control much of the health care delivery, even though it'll be federally funded, and we can manage it, we can have, eliminate more fraud, and we can do a better job of it, and put in private sector solutions. That would be some of my objective. Even though we can't do away with Obamacare, we could sure make what we have work better. I was in Mississippi the other day, and they have not decided on the Medicaid expansion issue there. They've actually decided against it for the time being, but they're watching Arkansas. And there's many states that are still playing this hand out. And so I don't think the story has been completely written yet as to where we're going. And I think you're going to see a future with extraordinary problems. Even the Democrat senator, what was it, Max Baucus on the Senate Finance Committee, he's saying we're headed for a train wreck with Obamacare. And in businesses, your insurance rates are going to go up. They're going to lay off employees. People are going to be irate about this. And so I think there's the future that is still unwritten about it. And but it's going to be here, but I think we're going to be able to shape it much better. Great question. All right, David, do you have a question? Mr. AG candidate?
Thank you, future governor. One of the things I talk about a lot in my campaign and everything is about an overreaching federal government. I just wanted to kind of ask you about your perspective on some examples of, such as Obamacare and so forth, about when the federal government is actually coming in and creeping in on state authority and individual liberty. Talk about the importance of the 10th Amendment, if you would.
I call it the new federalism. For a long time, our 10th Amendment, which says the states really have a significant role in our system of government in the United States, it's been diminished decade by decade, and all of a sudden there's a resurgence of it. And I actually, thought about where can I have the greatest impact in the future. And in the next 8 years, I am fully convinced I can have the greatest impact as governor of this state rather than going back to Washington. Washington is broken, and I believe that you can govern from the states, and you can help shape not just your state, but the direction of our country as well. And you see this happening all across America. And I think you're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. Right now, it's the health care that many of them are fighting against and presenting their own proposals. I think you're going to see this in education. We've had a system where the federal government has funded 10% of our secondary education dollars, but have controlled almost 100% of the policy. I think you're going to see that resisted as time goes on. So the states take a greater leadership role even in the education systems. So great opportunities. Listen, I've abused your time. You all are a terrific audience. I'm thankful for the opportunity to be here. Do we have one more question? One more question. Yes.
Well, I read in the paper the other day where Arkansas's disability rate is really, really gone up, and that people are not looking for jobs anymore, more seeking to get on disability, and that more SSI and all that kind of stuff was going to go, to these people that fraudulent disability. And they were talking about cutting some of
think that's exactly what the Inspector General is designed to do. And you're talking about the Medicaid rolls, because that's, you know, we have people on disability there. There's a separate SSI program, but, you know, the state level is really the Medicaid system that can be abused. And, you know, if you talk to folks that handle that, they tell you the stories about waste in it, duplication, or somebody that's not qualified trying to get on there. And it's such an important program. It's important because people need it, and we want to make sure it's available for those that need it, are entitled to it. But to do that, you've got to be able to address the fraud side of it. But part of the problem is people don't want to be on public assistance. People want to have a job. And so let's create an environment, rather than expanding entitlements, and rather than creating a more welfare, let's see if we can't create a job-creating environment so that they can actually have a job whenever they have that desire to have that. So thank you for the question. Y'all are terrific. Thank you for letting me be in Columbia County.